Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the closing bell here at MarketStream.live. My name is Joseph Cusick from the Cusick Group. Securities offered by MoneyBlock, here to wrap up the first trading day of 2017. And it was a decent day. Some volatility. We had a pop on the open, a drop at midday, and a pop on the close. The Dow closed at 19,882, up 0.6%. We had the NASDAQ closing up at 5429, up almost 8.5%. You had the S&P 500 closing up at 2257.83, up 0.8%, almost 0.9%. And the action came on higher up volume. You had basically 979 million shares trading in New York, which is greater than the average of 900 million. And you had 1.86 billion trade on the NASDAQ against this average of right around 1.7 billion. You had advancers outpacing decliners, and you had new highs outpacing new lows. So where did the relative strength come into play? Well, you wouldn't believe it if you saw the dollar action early in the session. We had the dollar at the 14-year highs, but junior miners, specifically junior gold miners, GDXJ would be the ETF symbol you could take a look at. That was one of the biggest leaders, up 4.92%. You also saw telecom continues to be on a tear. IYZ was up 4.55%. That sector is on the move. As a matter of fact, Verizon is going to be presenting at the Consumer Electronics Show tomorrow. Watch that one. We talked about it at Tech Talk this afternoon. You also see metals like platinum on the move, up 4.09%. You're also seeing some country ETFs on the move. Greece moving to the upside. Greek, G-R-E-K, up about 3.1% today. You're seeing Latin America moving to the upside. ILF up about 2.65%. Russia had a little bit of trouble getting out of the gate, but boy, did they pop after the midday and into the late part of this session. RSX is an ETF we can take a look at. Russia up 1.76%. We're going to watch this one very closely because we're going to see how oil is going to trade. See if actually everyone's going to stick to their OPEC agreements. Doesn't look too likely as we saw the action later in the day with crude dropping basically almost 2%. Huge range today, basically from 52 and some change to as high as 55. You're seeing Australia moving to the upside. EWAA is the Australian country ETF that you could take a look at, up 1.7%, and Hong Kong to the upside. Up about 1.64% in EWH. We're going to talk about that tomorrow morning in the overnight action report in Asia. Where we did see some relative weakness, though, nat gas. That was the story. It's been the story for the last couple sessions, but boy, the drop today was significant. UNG dropped down 10.9%, almost 11%. We're going to watch this one very closely. There is forecast for some warmer weather here in the Midwest as well as out in the East Coast and down south. You also saw, though, that volatility got smushed today. VXX was down 7%, almost 7.1%. And that was a little bit confusing since you saw a lot of action today, a lot of shifts. The bulls had it in the morning, the bears took it in the afternoon, or in the midday, and then the bulls took back control. Thought there'd be a little more volatility, but it got crushed into the day. We're going to keep an eye on that with VIX now in that 12.5 to 13 range. That's something that you're going to keep a close eye on. We also saw gasoline on the move. UGA was down about 2.81%. We're going to watch the EIA reports as well as the API reports. These are going to be inventory reports that we're going to watch midweek, both Wednesday and Thursday. See if we start seeing builds or draws in gas as well as crude. Also saw some move in livestock. Even though the dollar came off, livestock has been getting hit, coming off of some of its best levels. Cow down 2.7%. Swiss franc, looking at the currency markets, down about 0.9%. FXF. Also, the British pound continued to have pressure throughout this session. FXB is an ETF that you can look at if you don't have access to the futures, down about 0.7%. And we'll be talking about that at 8:45 a.m. tomorrow morning at Open Now in Europe. Also, the Japanese yen, FXY, continued to have pressure all day today, down 0.6%. And finally, Mexico. EWW, Mexico, has had some pressure as of late, especially since we're getting close to the inauguration of Trump. We're going to see what those policies are, as well as the more recent trade cabinet position fills that he's had, they're not too friendly, not only to Mexico, but also China. There are some important events that we're going to want to keep an eye on over the next 18 hours. Japan's manufacturing PMI is going to come out. That's the revision. It's due out tonight at 7:30. That could give a little bit of some catalyst going into the overnight session in Japan. The preliminary right now is impact is, or numbers are right around 51%. So we'll see if this number has as much impact as the PMI numbers have had as of late. Speaking of PMI, we'll watch the service PMI, which is not as big as the manufacturing PMI. But that's going to be something that will be very interesting. We're going to see if it holds its same levels or gets a little bit better. But again, that's not that it's going to be a huge market driver, but just inconsistency in that number could leave some uncertainty that might develop. Also watch the Eurozone CPI. It's going to be the preliminary out at around 5 a.m. I know you'll all be up because I will be. And as a matter of fact, you can join me at 8:45 and we'll take a look at that Eastern time. Germany did see a surprise jump in its figure, which will put the overall Eurozone number more in the forefront and front and center. So we're going to keep an eye on that. The headline number is expected to be an increase of about 1% year over year, and which would put it at right around about a 3.5-year high. You're also seeing that the core number is expected to come in about an increase of around 0.8%, which is more or less where it's been for the last 18 months. We're also seeing that President Obama is going to be out tomorrow addressing the new Congress. He's going to be on Capitol Hill. Probably the cornerstone of what he's going to be discussing is Obamacare. Finally, you're going to have U.S. vehicle sales out. Ford is going to be talking at the Consumer Electronics Expo tomorrow. With this sales data coming out and that potential catalyst with what they're going to discuss at that huge tech conference, there should be some interesting movements, not only in Ford, but all of the major players in the vehicle space. And then finally, the Fed minutes are going to come out. And what you want to keep an eye on when these minutes come out is keywords. Words that are going to then catalyze certain segments, sectors of this market. Specifically, you're going to listen for the words fiscal, dollar, China, and inflation. These are going to be terms that basically are going to be some drivers on some future policies that not only the Fed could be coming around the corner with as far as rates, because boy, it feels like it was only yesterday they raised it 25 basis points, but also with how the Trump administration might be impacted with what the Fed's discussion points were from its latest meeting. All right, folks, that is it right now for the closing bell. We will be back online tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time here at MarketStream.live with all the overnight action from Japan. Then we'll take a look at the open and what the action has been in Europe, as well as cover that in the United States at 9:30 Eastern time. So tons of content coming out this year from MarketStream.live, and we look forward to bringing it to you. Till then, have a great night, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Thanks.